Right, in this video, I'm going to go ahead and address what do homeless people do in the rain? And maybe you guys wonder, it seems like I've literally seen so many homeless people today in the rain that I don't normally see. They've kind of been around. I'm wondering if maybe they cleaned out the river bottom and displaced a lot of them, but maybe you'll just wonder what they do. So we're going to look around, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I've seen today. So we'll figure that out. You can find out what they do in the rain. So I saw one guy over here. Let's see if he's still here. He was over here. There's a shopping cart still there. I think that's her, actually. Right there. So she's just kind of wandering around, staying underneath the protection, kind of stay out of the way of other people. That's understandable. Not certain if that guy is homeless or not. There's a few around here. There's one guy right over here. Let's see where he is. There's a closed business here, of course. That's been closed for years. And there's a shopping cart and a guy right over here in the corner. There's this cart. There he is. It's almost like this shopping center needs to get security. I mean, it's always got homeless people in it. So it's a Hardman Center in Riverside. And honestly, this is the stuff that bugs me the most, the trash. I mean, there's literally trash cans within every 10, 20 feet in that shopping center, and they just leave their trash everywhere. Here's another one over here. Yep. Just wondering about, oh look, there's another guy behind the tree. Look at that, next to the bus stop. It's under a shelter over there. It's not raining at the moment, but it's been off and on. I've seen that homeless guy around. There's another one over here. Seen that guy around. He goes to the local McDonald's over here and they give him coffee. And that guy on the bicycle back there. So we've got one other one right over here. Right in within a couple of miles, hanging out underneath there. And then we've got all these folks here. This is within a quarter mile, less than a quarter mile square. And then we've got another guy back in over here with this cart over there. Kind of a long day to hang out underneath the eaves like that. It's pretty terrible. Yeah, these guys are not just homeless, they're drug addicted homeless. So it's just, you know, the drug addiction is the biggest problem. People go, well, it's mental health, but it's actually not everybody that has mental health problems goes and becomes a drug addict, just so you know. There's two of them at the bus stop over here. Same bus stop. There's two of them there. So anyway. And there's, oh, just a lady walking. I thought it was a homeless in a cart, but sorry about that. There's another one over here. There's no shelter for that person. I guess that thing is kind of shelter, but literally they just are all over the place in this area of town right now. It's just weird. But I've seen them in other areas of town we're going to go to in just a second. And it is 44 degrees out. Did that woman have shorts on? I think she did. And there's this guy over here. A guy was going the wrong way back there. That was nice. Next to the boarded up building. I was going the wrong way on the road back there. And I was looking to the right, seeing this homeless guy. So they just pretty much find a place under an eave somewhere and hang out. Guess what they do. That one over there, it looks like somebody in front of the 7-Eleven or some kind of a store over there. You guys, this is in Riverside, California. I honestly will tell you, I have never seen homeless like this, 15 years ago. Never seen this stuff. And this is not that big of a city. And you guys might wonder, I say, oh, there's people out there that say, I don't do anything for the homeless. And let me ask you a question. If you're one of those people that thinks that I don't do anything for homeless, I want to ask you, what do you do for the homeless? I've actually helped several people get housing from the ground up. from a person that I just met on the street and actually got them into housing. And I want to ask you, have you done that? If you haven't, it is up to you to do that. You don't wait for the government to do it. I'll tell you the story of one of the people maybe later in the video. It really has to be the right person. It has to be a person that is really just homeless and not a drug addict. Not all of them are, but it is really rare that you find one that isn't. But if you find somebody, especially if they're over 65, there are places for them to go. And that was the case with this one guy that I can tell you about, which I've done more than one. Looks like one up there on the corner. Right there. And there's a group of them I saw over here earlier when I was in this area. So I wanted to show you guys that. And if you look, they're underneath that awning. Kind of not trying not to bother anyone over there. We got this fella. I think he's carrying his bike for some reason. Really not sure if he was homeless or not. This lady here. Oh, this guy outside the Goodwill, of course, is homeless as well. Obviously drug addicted there. I can just tell by the way he was fidgeting. I think that's the local spot to urinate. Then we have these two gentlemen over here, lady and gentleman, definitely homeless. So I'm going to tell you guys some of the things you can do if you want to help the homeless, and things that you want to do that will help the actual homeless who are not drug addicts. And some people go, well, they need help too. Well, they need rehabilitation. If you just get them in a house, they're just going to make a mess out of it, and that won't do anything for anyone. Putting them in hotels is the dumbest thing ever. It is completely absurd to do that. So really, one of the things you can do if you have no time but you have money, one of the things you can do, or if you have goods you want to donate, is go to the Salvation Army. They give the most help to the homeless, and the biggest, best organization for helping the homeless is the Salvation Army. They do not, as far as I know, I don't know all of the things that they don't do. I've just read some comments from people that have told me that they don't help you if you're on drugs, which I really don't have any problem with. The person on drugs needs to get rehabilitation first, not get housing first. If you put them in a house, they're just going to make a mess out of it. You're enabling them. Rehabilitation does include housing, just so you know. If you go to a rehab, you're going to be living there for quite a period of time. And if they're not willing to do that, then they need to experience a lot more pain to the point where they just realize that there's no other option but for me to get help. Because the next step for them is death. So really, it's just a dead man walking until they get help. If they don't get help, if they don't choose help, that is their choice. Their choice to take the drugs in the beginning was their choice. It's also their choice to get help from rehab. And most of them have been to rehab and refused, or gotten kicked out of places, and that's why they're on the streets. So, you know, I do feel bad for them, but I also know that I can't enable them. And I believe, I can't speak for them, but I believe that Salvation Army shares the same respect that I do for that. It's just wasting money. But they do have shelters and they do have help, and if they had more money, it would get well spent into housing the homeless, because they actually do have a place downtown that they actually do have housing for them. And they want them to work, and they get them back to work as long as they are not doing drugs. That's what I understand. Like I said, I don't know. I haven't talked to them, but and what information I'm going to get unless I talk to like one of the major people with the company, or with the whatever it's called, foundation or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, that's what I've seen. That's all I can say on that. But as far as I said, I can't really speak for them. I just know what I've seen. I think that lady was homeless too. Pretty old. That person, if they're not on drugs, there is help for them. Now, the housing opportunities for the homeless, for the elderly, have gotten pretty full lately. And I have not been able to get anyone into them because of the laws of California that have put so many more people on the streets. Which, you guys, if you think that I'm just blowing hot air, I know what I'm talking about. California, the Democratic government of this state, has made things so difficult that it's put more people on the streets. It has put more people on the streets than ever before. You never saw this 15 years ago. And it's because of all the laws and all the things that they do. Like, people say, oh, what is having solar panels? It's like putting little weights on the end of the scale. What is putting solar panels do to a house? It makes it more expensive. What does it do when you add fire sprinklers to a house? It makes it more expensive. So when you add all these little weights, all of a sudden, eventually, the scale tips, and we're at that point where the scale has tipped and everything has fell off of it because they've made housing too expensive. You know, earthquake code is so ridiculous for a single-story home in California. Why do they have such ridiculous earthquake code? I live in a house that is the worst for earthquakes. So if you want to say that, oh, well, you wouldn't even, you're worried about safety, I'm living proof. My house was built in 1976. That is the year where they had the worst earthquake code ever, and it's 2-story. I'm talking about code that's ridiculous for single story. I built a actual garage in the back of my house. I had to put 12 earthquake straps on that garage. Completely ridiculous. Single story homes, when they've had earthquakes, if you look at past records, none of them. I have never seen a single story that became uninhabitable from an earthquake other than ones built in the early 20s and things like that, when they had cripple walls on the foundations. That wasn't very good for earthquake. But they've gotten, you know, even the houses built in the 70s, which were probably one of the worst built homes. I live in one, and I'm not worried. I'm not worried about an earthquake. I think it's so ridiculous that we make houses that are so structurally crazy sound, and it's because of insurance companies lobbying these damn Democrats, and they all fall for it because they want money. Don't think I'm kidding. This is how it works. They want money. That's what it's all about. With the Democrats, it's 100% money. Now, I'm going to say that, you know, there's some problem with the Republicans. I already know what they are. They pad the pockets of the rich. I've heard all this stuff. I know it's true. Okay? But when you weigh out the two alternatives and you look at what it's done for the middle class and the poor, what the Democrats have done, it is definitely epically worse than what the Republicans have done. That's why my dad, who worked for the welfare department for many years and helped hundreds, thousands of people get in homes, was a Republican, just like I am. Now, I don't believe in all Republican things, but some, most of them. There's another homeless guy underneath the awning. This lady was doing something like drawing on the glass, kind of just like I don't know, I think she thought she was cleaning it or something, but she just like totally spun out. Anyway, I don't think that's a habited business, I'm not sure. Couldn't really look. Of course, right by City Hall, you don't see any of them underneath the awnings out there. Democratic run city, and they don't do a damn thing for those people. Don't even want them to sit out front. If they were underneath these awnings over here, they would kick them out. Don't see them under there, do you? Now you see what, you know, and these guys are all, oh, well, we help the homeless. Bull crap. You don't do anything for the homeless, and you never will. The only thing that's going to help them is programs. Look, there's no homeless people underneath that beautifully nice big area. Security the hell out of it. Because they don't want to look at it every day, even though that they say that they're the ones that help them. They don't do crap for them. Just do like Gavin Newsom does, shove them all in a hotel. Great idea. What a moron. We'll just get them out of the cold for tonight. You know, give them options. Program or go to jail. What? You're going to criminalize homelessness? No, I'm criminalizing drug addiction, which last time I checked, it is a crime to be on drugs in public, not enforced. Amazing how people sensationalize things by saying, oh, you're criminalizing homelessness. No, you're not criminalizing homelessness. You're criminalizing tent camping on the street. You're criminalizing being on drugs in public. I know if you were a good upstanding citizen, you were drunk in public, they would arrest you. Oh, but because they're homeless, we don't want to do it. Oh, but the jails are so full. Well, who the hell doesn't enforce the death penalty in this state? Wonder who that is. Even after, in 2016, when everyone in this state voted for it, it was like 60% voted to keep the death penalty and expedite it. Look that up. You'll find out. 2016 voted in California, and someone doesn't want to enforce it. This fine young gentleman over here, he figured out how to deal with it, didn't he? And the lovely trash left by some of these guys just irritates the hell out of me, especially when there's trash cans right here. So anyway, we're going to talk about one of the guys that I helped many years ago. I mean, I've helped several of them, but this one was kind of special. I ran into this guy. He's now deceased because he was pretty old. Another homeless guy up here. What is he doing? But Roger wasn't the kind of guy where he was like walking around wandering on the streets. He was proactively trying to make money. And I met him at one of these stationery places, you know, where one of the stationery businesses. He was making copies, and I did not know he was homeless because, number one, he did not smell horrible. He was an older guy. He did smell a little bit because, you know, he could only shower every couple of days. But what he did is he went to the YMCA and took care of himself. Now, I did not know this because Roger looked pretty good, but he was actually near 80 years old. Roger had made a lot of bad choices in his life and admitted to it, of course, and he wanted to not be homeless, but he had a car and he lived in there, and he also lived in a little camper when I first met him. But one of the things he needed is, he says, man, I just need a place to make some phone calls. I said, well, you know, I've got a phone in my garage, and if you want to come over and make phone calls, you're welcome to use it. And of course he used it, and he paid for any long distance calls. At the time they didn't have like cell phones. Well, they did, but they were really expensive to use. So Roger did whatever he could. In the meantime, I talked to my dad and I asked him, I said, don't they have programs for elderly people? And he goes, oh yeah, there's tons. So I found out that he could qualify for something called SSI. And he didn't even know. He goes, I can't get anything. I haven't filed tax return in so long. And, you know, I've been hand to mouth for so many years that, you know, I just don't have any way to do that. I can't get any Social Security, he said. I said, but you can get SSI. So we filed for SSI and got SSI. And at the time, there was a vacancy in a elderly housing tower in the city, because again, we had some contacts at that time. Now there's like a really long waiting list because of the things that I'm so angry about that are done by this state and by the Democrats. It's totally them. And so we were able to get him in to housing. And what they do is they would give you, they take whatever your SSI check was. So his SSI check was pathetically like, I'm going to say $100 or something like that. And they gave him housing in exchange for that. And also included with that, they have like a cafeteria type of thing, and they would make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he was very particular about his diet because he was very health conscious, and he would eat a lot of raw vegetables and things like that. And they would help him get what he needed, even for that. But Roger lived probably till he was 90 something. And he had his own apartment in the building. So it was great. He had his own place. It was the first time he had his own place in many, many, many years. He had been homeless, I don't know how long, probably 15 or 20 years. So in some cases, there are those people that you can help, but it's very rare. Most of the time, they are drug addicted homeless, and it's hard to know the difference. You got to spend some time with them. You got to know what you're dealing with, and you can't deal on hope and can't live in denial. You have to live in total reality of what's going on. You can't say, well, I hope this guy's not a drug addict. You need to know. Don't waste your time with any of the ones that are. Let the rehab facilities weed those ones out, because their only hope of getting to not be homeless is to get off of drugs. Because if they just are on drugs, there's some functioning drug addicts. I mean, there's a few, but most of them are gonna just become a real problem for society unless they just stop doing the drugs altogether. And that takes time, that takes rehabilitation, and some just won't do it. Now, I don't know exactly how these things work. There's a place called RHS, Retirement Housing Foundation, that does a lot of these type of things. And that's not the one that helped Roger, but there's places like that, and most of them are Christian organizations. Sorry guys, if you don't like that, that's just the way it is. It's just like the Salvation Army. Is there a government involved with them? Nope. But they do the most for the homeless, more than any government ever will. Sure, RHS would take a donation. I don't know exactly how you'd do it, but they're out there. I think what they do is they collaborate with several churches, Christian churches, and get funding from them. If I recall correctly, that's how it's done. And that's how these other ones are done. So, listen, you know, there is help for some of these people. Most of them, they're on drugs. No, there won't be. They have to get rehab. They cannot survive. They will die. They will die, and they have to realize it. It has to be their choice to go to rehab. And there's rehab available for them most of the place. Most of the time, there is tons of rehabs that right now that are taking in people, and some of it's funded by churches. I think there's some that are funded by government. I would be surprised if it's just so much red tape to get someone in those that they can't even get in it. But anyway, for those of you guys who are just the haters that think I don't do a damn thing for the homeless, you've just been schooled. So go ahead and write those comments. Doesn't matter to me. I know myself what I've done, and Roger was not the only one. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that. That man was happy for the rest of his life. For the next 10 years of his life, he was in housing. He bought himself a computer. He did things that he wanted to do, because he still made some money, but it wasn't enough to live. And listen, there's things that each and every person can do to help people. And you can do something yourself. If you can't do anything yourself, you could give to one of those organizations that I was talking about. Give to your local church. That's what tithing does, is it goes to a lot of funding organizations like those that actually do things for people. So anyway, and everybody just wants to down churches and down all this stuff and make them pay taxes and all that crap. And you know what? That is just flat wrong. They are people that just aren't aware of what happens through churches. So anyway, if you're wondering what happens with the homeless in the rain, I hope this helps you. You can see it, and I hope you've been educated on things that you can do to help the homeless if you're interested. I'll talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.